Hello and welcome. My name is Jody Hamerda, and I am an associate faculty with UAGC, and I'm the host for this session. Um, Jennifer, can you share your slide so that we can see it?
Yes, can you not share my slide or see them?
Yeah. Just go to the one that has your title in it.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yep.
Women in Technology and Informal Mentorship. I am excited to introduce the host, but first, some housekeeping. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now I'm pleased to introduce to you the newly minted Dr. Jennifer Lewis and her presentation, Women in Technology and Informal Mentorship. I am thrilled to welcome her to begin today.
Thank you. Thank you. What a nice introduction. And thank you, Dr. Murda, and to the TLC committee and everybody even involved to allow me this opportunity to present my research. I'll be sharing a little bit today about women in technology and informal mentorship, and specifically how women navigate that male-dominated landscape of technology through the use of that powerful tool of informal mentorship. Now, I will say that this is a really small glimpse into the research. For those that have gone through the process, you realize that it takes over your entire life forever, and it's huge, and you want to share everything. But a lot of great details didn't make this cut in an effort to get the presentation into the time box and make sure that we could share the crux of it. But I've tried to really focus on amplifying the voices and showcasing those experiences of these women. So a little bit about me. As Jody mentioned, I'm a recent PhD graduate of UAGC from the Organizational Development and Leadership Program. Jody was my chair. I am a female. I work in the industry now, and I have worked in the industry for more than 15 years. Eventually, sort of making my way to the tech capital of the world, Silicon Valley. I live and work here in the Bay Area as a business owner and tech consultant. I will say I moved 6 years ago from Denver, Colorado. So seeing those pictures gives me a little bit of a reaction. I miss it, but also it looks really cold. So I live and work in the Bay Area. I own a business. I'm a tech consultant, but most importantly, I'm a mom to Archimedes, the dancing dog, and a wife to Christoph, who is my personal informal mentor. My own personal experience working in tech mirrors many women in the industry. A feeling like you don't belong. I've been met with many instances of the glass door not being able to get in. I've experienced the glass ceiling, not getting those promotions or moving forward. I'm usually the only female in the room, often spoke over. My ideas have been duplicated. They've been repeated by others as their own. I lacked sort of that conventional path to follow or how to get ahead or move forward. And for much of my career, I've sort of operated in that survival mode. I've had to forge unconventional paths and connections and lots of different approaches to sort of force growth. But as I read this, maybe you're even having a reaction or you're silently nodding in solidarity because maybe you too are familiar with these experiences. These aren't unusual. They're not rare experiences. These are really normal and heavily researched lived experiences for women working in technology and other male-dominated industries. So I did mention they're heavily researched. What does the literature say about women in STEM? It says that women want to work in STEM and they're skilled to work in STEM. 47% of STEM graduates are women. Nearly half are women. But this is where the issues start. The glass door I was talking about, that barrier to entry. Only 29% of that 47 actually enter the workforce for that degree. And because we like glass, the door isn't the only piece of glass. They encounter that glass ceiling almost immediately, with 15 to 17% of that 29 that entered being promoted, and only 13% of that 15 to 17. Remember, we're going down each time to smaller and smaller numbers. So 15 to 17% actually living in executive leadership positions or those upper echelons of leadership within tech. That is such a tiny, small amount. That's a really small number of women in those exec roles in STEM. And even then, when they've made it, they've gotten there. These are rare unicorns, but they're highly skilled and tenured at this point. They've had to forge unconventional paths, so they're gritty. They still leave. And this, much of their exit is attributed to gender disparity and bias at this point. So if this is a true story and lived experience for people in tech or for women in tech, how does anyone make it in tech? There's a powerful tool that's highly utilized by men in the industry, and it's this Whisper network. This is an informal mentorship cohort that sort of aids in professional development, career growth, attain tenure, and accomplishment. In this Venn diagram of colleagues, connections, and friends lives in the center of this unspoken Whisper network of informal mentorship. Unfortunately, when we make colleagues, connections, and friends, they tend to be gendered. This leaves that tool really underutilized in technology due to that scarcity of women to connect to each other. There aren't enough of us to even form these powerful networks of belonging. So why is this important? Why is it important to not only have women in tech, or why is it important to even explore how they might be able to utilize this tool so that we can keep more women in tech? Well, we already know that women in leadership promote innovation. We also know that innovation is that key ingredient in the technology industry. So it's important to the bottom line of tech companies who really want that competitive edge. With such a fast-moving industry, innovation is key. And there's a direct line to diversity to get that innovation. Also, it's important to examine how women have successfully used this tool of informal mentorship in an effort to roadmap this for other women to follow. Remember, these are unconventional paths that women took. So how do we roadmap this, find some commonalities, and get a roadmap together so that women can follow? It's also important to have a better comprehension of how these informal alliances are formed so that we can replicate this a little bit more consistently. And we already know that there's an absence of female leadership in technology. That's not new. It's not a surprise. There's plenty of literature pointing this out, but anytime that we can provide data-driven redress of the issue and always keep it top of mind and top of conversation, I think we have a responsibility to do that. So this research was really about the stories of the women who did make it, those women who found success and promotion and tenure in the industry, in an industry that didn't make it easy for them. They were underrepresented. They came in underrepresented. They didn't have well-defined professional trajectories. They utilized mentoring as their tool for professional development, tenure, accomplishment, and career growth. And this was incredibly relevant and meaningful to me, having my tenure in technology. I had relevance to the issue and a pretty obvious fueled passion to the topic. So this research set out to answer 3 research questions. How do women in the industry describe their lived experiences of being formally mentored? What meaning did they ascribe to their mentoring experiences? And then what extent did this informal mentorship impact the likelihood of them obtaining and retaining those leadership positions that they had or were in? So breaking it down, this was a qualitative phenomenological study. I utilized proposive sampling in LinkedIn to really find the participants who went through who at that time had been informally mentored, working in tech for a certain number of years, and had attained leadership positions. That wasn't easy. Remember, there's not very many of us out there. They went through semi-structured transcribed interviews via Zoom. And then these transcripts were sort of sent to them after the fact to engage member checking to make sure that their words were really what they intended those words to be. That data was analyzed for findings using deduce. So what was the outcome? Overall, the overarching theme really was that informal mentorship for these women who found it and utilized it was a critical catalyst in enhancing their career growth and mobility for all of the participants. They had a hard time. Some other things that really surfaced that were important was that they had a hard time finding mentors. The availability of mentors, as we've discussed, was really limited for them. They had to find some unconventional mentors. They reached out opposite gender mentors. They even reached below to find certain mentors. It was really varied, but they had a hard time finding them. They also expressed some consequence for choosing an inappropriate mentor, and that it could be really adverse. For that reason being, often women would consider that there might be only one seat at the table, then they would compete for that one seat rather than aid in building new seats, or even vacating seats to make space for women. So that was a tough one. Participants found that mentors were initially colleagues. They often evolved into friends. They provided sustained support throughout the mentee's career. These relationships extended beyond professional boundaries. They encompassed personal life, some mutual feedback and shared experiences. These were contextual connections that were important. It was important to have somebody that they knew as a person, that knew them, that maybe they worked at the same place. Maybe they obviously work in the same industry. Maybe they knew a previous boss, whatever that was, they understood where they were at, what they were trying to do, but they also understood them as a person, so they could estimate how they might react to a situation because they understood them as a friend or as a person. They expressed that their informal mentorship relationships really fostered environments where they could receive invaluable advice and developmental support. They used words. The words that came up over and over again about these relationships was that they were open, they were honest, they were candid, they were trusting, they were caring, they were nurturing, they were giving. Okay, this is all great news, but how do we move forward? Well, I think in whatever role you're in, wherever you're at, I think that we can encourage, or even if you have the ability to pull the lever, to provide transparent promotion data. We need to hold accountable the collective unconscious bias of the glass ceiling. We can also reconsider formal mentorship programs. We know through research that these aren't incredibly effective. And we also know that often they're proven more harmful than helpful in many organizational structures. Those formal structures of assigning one person to another person, that's not an organic meeting, can be harmful to that individual's career. There are also ways that we can restructure these for more positive outcomes. So if we need to keep these formal structures together, we can do a little bit more reaching back to the outcomes that we want and restructure them for those positive outcomes. Be more mindful about our programs. And we can revise these mentor programs to account for more informal experiences. So let's find ways to create this happenstance meeting and connections, more meetups, more ways that people can organically form these relationships that are incredibly powerful. So I'm forever grateful to the women who lent their voices for this research. They all echoed details about informal mentorship and its role as a powerful tool in their careers. Today, I think I'm just asking that you reach out to your peers, offer that mentorship or ask for mentorship if you need it. Make a connection with someone that you can trust. Help other women and yourself to find that whisper network, that place that you can belong.
Dr. Lewis, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your research with us, specifically within the context of belonging. I think it's a powerful message. I wanted to call out that you have somebody who felt a connection to your findings. And so Lisa Lamb shared that mentors have made a huge difference for her in her career development, but it's hard to find a good one. And so your call to action, your call to reach out to others and be that peer mentor. What did you find in your literature review, or what did you hear from your participants? Like what are some ways that we can make it easier to connect with appropriate mentors?
Yeah, in the literature review, or even in some of these participants' words, there's a couple different issues. One, when you're looking for that research, it becomes a little bit risky to reach out, because there is some issue finding the right one, or it can be detrimental if you ask the wrong one who thinks there's only one seat at the table. So finding other ways to ask people for mentorship just by trying to make a connection with them. Not asking, you're not going out and asking for mentorship on the very first conversation. You're having coffee with a person. You're developing a friendship, just as anybody would develop a friendship. Go to a meetup and develop this friendship. Go to events in the area, your conferences. Like, there's a lot of ways that you can professionally meet people that you don't go and say, well, I'm going to go look, my checklist here is to look for a mentor. No, your checklist should be to make a connection with somebody, and then ask them questions about themselves, ask them questions about how they got to certain areas. So even if they're not in the mindset of, I want to help you, just by answering some of these questions, you're going to receive some help. But then on the other side, when you have reached a level of, you're in promotion, you're in an executive role, often because these were unconventional paths, you're working twice as hard just to stay there, just to keep that position, just to have your voice be heard, just to not be spoken over. That making space to help someone else get there is not top of mind. You're in survival mode, and survival mode often doesn't think of others. So take a pause and reach back and find people who are asking you questions at this meetup, asking you questions about you, and offer that help. Offer them ways that worked for you. Be genuine in your interactions.
That sounds amazing. I wonder if you have tips. What are the characteristics of an appropriate mentor? You gave us some, you said that some people, found what not to do by having the wrong mentors. And then you do talk about this sense of scarcity. There's only one seat at the table. So what are the characteristics of somebody? And I see that Haley Sampson, appreciates the call to authenticity. And so I can imagine finding someone who's authentic would be at the top of the list of, what a good mentor characteristic looks like.
Yeah, I went in thinking that I might get good mentor characteristics, like, oh, they're all females, that helped them reach, and that wasn't true. A lot of these women found unconventional paths and unconventional mentors, and a lot of them partnered with men, which can be risky. Partnering with a male mentor, sending the wrong signals, depending on the view of the male mentor. It can be challenging, but the characteristics, and I think I kind of talked about them earlier. When you even are looking for somebody to hang out with as a friend, you have these open, honest, candid people who sometimes surprise you with their authenticity, as Haley was mentioning, with their authenticity. These these tend to be these genuine people who really do want to help. These are people who will often use the word they and team instead of me and I. So find those people who are about other people, and you'll have a little bit more success in finding someone who's willing to help or who might be willing to help down the road.
I love that. That is some great tips. So I'm gonna put a call out to the chat to see if any of our other participants have questions while we have about 2 more minutes of Dr. Lewis's time. I need to check the other app as well.
Okay.
Joy Rose says, excellent information. Has it really taken this long and we still don't have a good mentor program for IT? Ooh,
That's heavy. Unfortunately, Joy, yes, it's not only taken this long, but it's going to take longer. We've tried to put a formal, and I say we when I'm speaking about the tech industry, has tried to put formal mentor programs in place. And we've been measuring those over the past decade or so. And it's been proven to be problematic, because then you are forcefully pairing people up with others who don't necessarily have the intent to help out. It's just part of a program you have to be in to get to the next rung of leadership. So there's been some harmful impacts from these formal networks and forced meets. They're not authentic, they're not genuine, they're not real. That person is often not there to help, and the other one is often not asking for help. They're just paired up for this program. So while it looks good on paper for the organization to say we have a mentor program, those formal, really structured things where I have to report back. Did you have coffee with your mentor? Well, it's weird to go have coffee in a forced way and try to talk about work. Now there might be some actual genuine relationships that come from that, but they have been proven to not be incredibly helpful. So yeah, I think it needs to be revisited. These informal networks have been in place and already work. Men are using them and they're great. And we need to replicate those. It's a little harder because these are happenstance meetings and friendships that develop. So those can't really be forced. It's harder to measure and harder to create programs. But yeah, to answer your question, we're still lacking it.
okay, well, to close up, I want to highlight some messages in the chat. Haley has a friend who's in the STEM field who she wants to encourage her to find a mentor. So she's going to be sharing this recording with her. And maybe even she'll reach out to you to figure out how to do that. And Dr. Handy would love to connect with you to talk about peer mentoring research. And so I think this is amazing. So Dr. Lewis, just thank you so much. At the end of finishing the doctoral program and still showing up here for the TLC community to share your research is amazing. So thank you to the audience for your participation in today's session. Please use the survey link in the chat. I'm going to put it in the chat. To nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and share your feedback on this presentation. So thank you so much to Dr. Lewis. This has just been amazing working with you, and to the people who attended today, I can tell that there's a lot of love in this space. So thanks everyone, and I'll see you all in the next session.